guys, this is Chikochi again. I hope all of you are good and welcome to another video. And I hope all of you have a very good day. I hope all of you have enjoyed your weekend. And yeah, guys, I'm going to go straight into it. I'm going to be talking about, it's another video. I'm going to be talking about Manchester United and generally the plan moving forward, I've had a lot of time to think about the last video I made and about what I thought about what type of midfielder Man United would need as a third one. And, it depends a lot on what United need moving forward as a club. And that's why I think, guys, we have to really look at the profiles of the players. I remember on the last video, when I spoke about the last video, I explained about the fact that United needed to get a combative, probably, or what they were looking for was a combative, very physical midfielder who was obviously going to cover ground, eat up space, make sure that if there's any holes in the midfield, especially because you know that Tielemans and probably Andre Santos has the capacity as a box-to-box midfielder, but probably Tielemans, Collie, Kobe, Bruno, and Mason Mount. Mason Mount has the capacity to go up and down, but he's not an 8 per se who is very known for winning the ball back. He's more of a pressing 8. He likes to play on the front foot, and also you have to also remember about his injury record, that it's not a very dependable player in terms of that area. So I'm just going to be talking about when I look at the traits of what United are looking for and what I think for as a club United would need to look at in order to probably move forward and to improve on that sector. And if you'd be asking, you'd be wondering why all of a sudden would I be coming and talking about this, because I think for a long time, for a very long time, United haven't had that type of midfielder. Obviously, we looked at Casemiro the past few seasons, him holding that role and being a defensive pivot that we were going to play through. But I think we have to be honest as Manchester United fans and say his tenure within our United, or his time in the past the 4 years he was at United, there was a lot of ups and downs in terms of performances. There was a lot of ups and downs in terms of what he brought to a game. He brought a lot of leadership. He brought a lot of tenacity and tempo. But, he wasn't that mainstay that you could build your midfield around, because there was a lot of holes. I think from what we could see, there were a lot of holes in his game. Kase didn't really control the game. Kase didn't really make the team tick from the middle. And one thing I would say that was one of his biggest strengths was actually him coming to United really showed that he is more of a box-to-box midfielder than a sitting midfielder, because you could see that he was making a lot of runs into the opposition box. He had a lot of good quality in terms of playing passes into the final third. There was always that first-time pass that would always swoop around, especially when the defensive team was pressing in deep. You'd find that either the striker or the second midfielder would always switch in behind and run in behind, and Kase would look for that raking ball over the defense. And he played it a lot. And I think last season was where you could really see his smell. I always feel like his ability to be able to know when to attack the box. He was very good in the set pieces. He scored a lot of set piece goals, but he was also very good in crosses. So I think you could see that Kase was that type of midfielder, but he never was a pivot that you could probably move the ball through. He wasn't the player that would dominate the game. And one is that United had a role to play that, because United, over such I've been explaining, have been a transition team, have been a team that plays on the break. A lot of their qualities and a lot of their traits lean to them being able to be a team that plays on turnover ball, that plays on quick transition. You see the wingers, the moment United look dangerous, they've always been a team that look dangerous the moment that they win the ball quick, and then they move the ball quickly, and then they are the opposition team quickly. So that was what I would say that was something that I think leaned to him adding that ability to the game. But I think they still didn't have that solid base that could make the team move well, would know when to pick up the tempo, drop the tempo down, know when to play short passes, know when to reduce the game, when to pick up the pace, know when to play triangles, and most of the time when the game became very tight, that's when you also saw that he became very loose in possession. And that was also because he didn't have that ability to play in short spaces, like a Kobe does, I would say, and also have that ability to be able to start the ball from the back. You could see that person who took more of that responsibility was Kobe, but that was later in the season. Generally, United were not a team that played from the back because they would always tell Sene to always play the ball forward very quickly, would play long balls, and then they would play from second balls because they didn't have that ability to play through. I think that has to play also according to the passing patterns that United and the structure that they had, but also the fact that they didn't have Lisandro, because I think Lisandro, especially when we're a team that builds from the back, his ability to play through the lines and his passing ability was such a big thing. And when he came back and they played the second half of the season, you could see that the team improved very well in terms of how we were able to play the ball through, and then the team improved there. But we still needed that defensive and that midfield block so that we could be able to play through. And then the second point I'm saying this is because, I looked at the World Cup, guys, and I looked at the semi-final games between France and Spain. I also looked at the game between Argentina and England. And I studied the two midfields, especially the two winning teams. The midfield between Spain and the midfield, and the Spain against France, and the midfield that between England and Argentina. And there was two distinctive things that I noticed was the quality in terms of how they controlled and the capacity for them to play through the lines. The ability to play, and especially the deep line playmakers. At Argentina, they had Leandro Paredes, and also in Spain, they had Rodri. But at Argentina, they had Leandro Paredes, and then they had Enzo, and then they had McAllister, because they played more as a diamond. Argentina played in a 4-3-1-2. They played more in a diamond system. They played Leandro, then they played Alex as the 2-8s in front of Fernandez, and Alex McAllister as 2-8s, and then they had Messi in front of them who could roam wherever they wanted, and then they had Simeone as an inverted right striker who was always staying out wide, but you could see that he was also inverting, playing well. And then they had Julian Alvarez, who was the left-sided striker, who was also playing from left, but he was always coming from outside in. So you had that, and then the Spain one, who was playing in a traditional 4-2-3-1. They had Rodri and that Fabian Ruiz. They had Dani Olmo. Then they had Oyarzabal as a false 9. And the else also had Alex Buena. It was more of a 10, but it was inverting deep into the midfield. And the control that Spain and Argentina had in those games in terms of their ability to play through was a big thing, Yes, the two things that you could notice between France and England was the physicality and the athleticism of their midfields. But you could see the ability and the lack of control that those two teams had compared to a Spain and a France, and a Spain and an Argentina. And it was always in their defensive midfielders, and I would call those players deep line playmakers. Rodri and Paredes were always the ones who were starting the ball. They were always the ones who were starting the ball from deep. Whenever the balls got lost, they were always the first one to win the ball back and be able to keep their opposition, their teams on the front foot and play. But it was the ability and the comfortability on the ball. They'd be able to play, to drop deep, to be the first line of passing, to be the first ones who would always receive the ball. And it was not always their running ability. It was the ability to play 1 and 2 touch. And that's the thing, guys. The ability to play 1 and 2 touch. the ability to play their other midfielders into their half spaces, the ability to play on the half turn, the ability to know when to slow down the ball to pick up the tempo, the ability to drop into as a third defender, or as a third defensive, or as the first line of passing. So if the ball was always going through the middle, it would obviously usually always go through Leandro and Rodri. And that was a big thing, because you will notice that every single time England and France had the ball, especially Declan Rice and Adrien Rabiot, they would always try to run with the ball. But you would notice that Spain and Argentina always wanted the ball to move. And that was the thing that showed me that it's not always about physicality, guys. Yes, physicality is so important and athleticism is important, but it's being able to understand and read pictures, being able to have picture in your mind before you receive the ball. And I think United need a deep line playmaker. That's why I think it's so important to have a deep line playmaker, because I know and understand the athleticism that's needed to be able to win the ball back, the athleticism that's needed to run. But I looked at it and then understood that it's not always about having players that are able to go up and down. It's always about the quality of the ball, being able to make your team work. If you looked at the Spanish and the Argentinian teams, Spain and Argentina have been probably two of the most successful nations in international tournaments for the past 15 to 20 years. They've always been in semifinals or finals, both of them. And the reason why those teams have been there, obviously, besides the France and Croatia final, but those teams, the midfield structure was the thing that defined those teams. And I think for Manchester United, it's very important that they need to have a midfielder that can make them play. A lot of times when you're going to European tournaments and you're going to the Champions League and when you're going to the English Premier League, I think we overemphasize the importance of having athleticism and running ability. And especially in the English Premier League, they always emphasize the ability to have legs. But you also need to have control. The team that wins the midfield battle is obviously always the team that probably wins the game. And the team that has been the most dominant in the English Premier League has been Man City. You wouldn't say that Rodri is a lung-busting athletic warrior who always going up and down. But it's his understanding of where to be, when to pass, when to not pass, when to plug the hole when the defender goes into midfield, when to be able to make that pass when to play 1-2s, when to play one touch. That ability is such a big thing, and being technically secure in retaining the ball is such an important thing that I think that doesn't get recognized enough. As much as I was disappointed that United obviously missed out on Sandro Tonali, Elliot Anderson, and Matthias Fernandes, but I do think Man United was very smart in getting a player like Yuri Tielemans, because his ability on the ball to be able to see a picture, to be able to let the ball keep on moving, to be able to play on the half turn, and to play on the back foot or half turn, or to be able to see a pass, be able to play a pass with one pass, and not always necessarily always having to run with the ball. It's such a distinctive trait that I think United do need in the team, because United have been a team that likes to play in games that are up and down. But their evolvement as a team, in order to evolve and to be a team that is very good on the ball, and which they did show in sections, as much as I wasn't completely happy with everything that they did in the second part of the season under Carrick, because they struggled in a lot of the games where they needed to control the ball, or where they needed to control the games, where they needed to play in the last third, where they needed to be able to move the ball through the thirds. When teams put them under pressure and teams were putting them under pressure and pressing them in through the midfield, not giving them space, they didn't have that capacity because of them not have, I think, the passing patterns or the positional awareness to know where to be. And also that pass into that midfield player needs to be with the player that you know is going to be secure in possession. And ultimately, that's why you saw, guys, in stages, you found that instead of Casemiro being the deepest lying player, it was usually Kobe who was the one who was coming to take the ball and would start off play, because he's very good in short space, he's very good in turning, he's a very good dribbler, he's very technical, he's a metronome of a player. So that's what I'm saying, and that's what I'm trying to say, is that I wouldn't be too disappointed if Manchester United looked at a player who could move the ball or would dominate and drive the ball and keep the ball from the midfield. And that's why I think a player like an Adam Morton, a player like an Angelo Stiller, those types of players that are very metronome, those are registers, players who the ball starts from. Doesn't necessarily need to run with the ball in order to make it, but who is careful with the pass, has a picture in his head, who knows when to play one touch, who knows when to play two touch, who knows when to play the pass through the lines. Those types of players, especially if I look at it like a Michael Carrick. Michael Carrick was never known as a guy who would always go up and down. It was his ability to know when to pass, being able to play that quick passing behind the midfield, opposition midfield line, that quick pass just in behind the line that would break lines. Those types of players are players that I think United should also are very rare. And when you find those types of players who can control the game, who can dictate play from deep, those are players that are a diamond a dozen. It's not very easy to find. That's why a lot of teams are misprofiling a player like Adam Morton, because the first thing they say is that he doesn't have the ability to run the game, or doesn't have this ability to run or to cover ground. But it's not always about covering ground. You cover ground as a team. It's a smart. I have a thing where Jose Mourinho was saying that you do everything as a block. You press as a block, you defend as a block. When you press as a block and you press as an offensive team, those players are smart enough to understand that, okay, I can play this one, I can reduce the space for this person. How has Man City been so dominant for the past 7 to 8 years when they've been playing with the Bernardo Silva, Kevin De Bruyne? Yes, Kevin De Bruyne is a long-busting player, runs with the ball. But generally, they've been playing Bernardo Silva and Rodri in the midfield. Let's go to Arsenal. Arsenal, for large parts of last season, they struggled in a lot of games because they didn't play with that. They wanted to play with a lot of faith, because they wouldn't be able to break teams down through the midfield, because they didn't have that type of player that would move the ball. Yes, Rice and yes, Subimendi would always run with the ball and would always be physical. But also having that player they can play line breaking passes, having that player that could know when to pass, know when to slow down the game, know when to play quick 1-2s, is such an important thing, because a lot of games right now are very quick, But I think if Man United can get a player like Adam Morton, not to say a player like Kamavinga or a player like Kone is not going to be appreciated by a player like me, but also having a player like Mamadou Sangare from Lens is a very good player. A player like I said, Angelo Stiller gets misprofiled, but is a very good player, has the ability has the potential to be a very good player. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that United needs to get the most expensive player in order to improve as a team. You improve as a team when you understand the profile of the players that you have and playing in a way that suits them, so that they can be able to find it much easier. It's not necessarily about only having Premier League experience in order to be a very good team. You also need to have a good principle. You need to have a good style of play. I was playing a 4-2-3-1. I was playing a 4-3-3. I was playing our wingers wide. I was playing with our wingers inverted. I was playing with 2-8s that like to drive in the box. Do we want to play as a Liverpool with long passing number 8 to run, or do we want more technical players who can keep the ball, can control the tempo of the game? Because when you're going to play in the league and also going to play in the Champions League, you need to have a different side about you. You can't just be a physical team that will always try to overpower teams. You also have to be secure in possession. Your ball retention has to be good. Your ability to play in short spaces, your ability to make 1-2s and play in triangles is also very good. Giving runs in behind, playing through third man, running, crossing. You need to be a full package, And I really like so far that United are not looking at the tight tag of being the most expensive, but having players that are very good and have the capacity to also improve and play well. Me, my target, I wasn't looking, yes, I'm a Man United fan and I want Man United to win the league. That I will never lie. But I also want a team that is very good, because for the past few years, for the past decade, United have struggled a lot when they've played against teams that sit back. They've been a team that generally plays on the counter-attack. And when you're a counter-attacking team, you can only play until a certain point. You have a ceiling, and teams generally are teams these days. The data and the way teams are being scouted, the teams are very smart. They already know that, okay, if we give Manchester United the ball, we know that they are going to struggle when we don't give them space. Teams will sit in a low block, will reduce space, make things difficult, and United will struggle to play through. Because one, they don't have the players with the tactical acumen to be able to know when to play, but also the club and the coaching and the quality of player that they had. The quality of play, one, you need to have a style of play that would suit the players that you have, but also have a coach that will also want to play and move the ball with a lot of slickness. And that's the thing that I'm looking for the next part of Manchester United. They need to evolve into a team that plays more in possession, that is very good on the ball. Yes, we have to play fast when we need to play fast, but we also need to be a team that is also able to play against teams that say, okay, we're going to give you the ball, play through us. And you need to have the players that have that ability on the ball, but it starts from the back. It starts from the back. You need to be able to have players that are comfortable in possession, players that can move the ball through the lines. And I think having those types of profiles is a very smart thing. So what I'm trying to say is that I've looked at it. Yes, it would be perfect to have a player like Manu Kone and Chouameni or a Kamavinga. But I also think it's not a bad idea for Manchester United to also get profile of players that are very good in possession, because then it's about the team and the coaching staff improving the team to make them better in a certain area of the game. And the certain area of the game I think United need to improve in is to control games and to be able to put teams under pressure for the duration of the games. In a lot of the games, even against smaller teams feel like they can be able to attack Man United because they know that United will play for a certain amount of time and then they'll give them the ball back, and then United will sit back and they give off control. So you need to also have a mix of good power, good athleticism, but also good technical ability, good strength. And I guess I just looked at it from that aspect, looking at the games that I looked at, because I analyzed the two semi-final games of the World Cup, and it made me think that it's not always about having players who are always physical and having athletic. Yes, the Premier League is starting to become an athletic league, but you still need to have those qualities in possession. You still need to have those players who have the eye, who can create quick pictures in their mind. So that's what I just thought, guys, and I just wanted to give my thoughts on that because I felt like it was such an important thing that I needed to analyze and give my points on that, because sometimes we get too fixated on having players that are runners with the ball, and no, it's not always. Let the ball work first. When the qualities of a good midfielder is knowing when to run, knowing to play one touch, knowing to play two touch, and those types of players are diamond, because they are not a lot of those players. I feel like us as players, we look at the English league and we look at how the profile of the English league, where we have powerful runners, and we almost get excited. But having players, but then we look at when our teams go to the later stages of the Champions League, when we play against the Barcelonas, the Real Madrids, the PSGs as such, those players don't have the same physical profiles that our teams in the English Premier League come. So those teams play. Those teams move around the ball. PSG played against Chelsea last season, and I think they beat them 5 or 6-0. And you look at the midfield, and probably the midfield of Chelsea, in Caicedo, in Enzo, and they had a lot of powerful players above PSG, because PSG had Wadrid Zaire, Vitinha, and Vitinha, and probably Fabian Ruiz, and João Neves, I say. But because They had a good mix of understanding technical acumen, understanding when to pass, when to move on the ball, when to control the ball. They immediately won that game. Still the same thing as Barcelona. Barcelona plays with Frankie de Jong and Pedri. You know? So I just want us to be too careful, to not immediately bring the drama about, yeah, you need to have a physical player. I think Yuri Tillemans is a smart signing. Because, and I think in games when the team starts to improve, and I hope that Carrick will improve the team tactically, and in terms of the style that they play consistently moving forward, I hope it improve. We improve our way of playing, especially in possession, because I think that sets the standard for a very good team. When you can put teams under pressure with the ball, when you can make teams run with the ball, when you can make teams think twice about coming after you, because they know that if we press too quickly against Manchester United, if we press too quickly against PSG, they know how to create very quick combinations, and they get through us, and then they go to our defensive line. So I just think it's very, very important that United, as such, gets a midfielder who also has a good mix of athleticism, but also a good mix of physical. He's a very good player in possession, very technical, and knows how to control the game from deep. You know, I wouldn't be too disappointed if Manchester United got those types of profiles and they moved away, because I think the game needs that. Manchester United need that type of player. And I think because they don't get appreciated enough, we lose the insight of how those players are. And yeah, I just wanted to give my 2 cents on that, guys, to say, and I think United needs to have the type of midfielder as a third player. Another Ayub Boadi is another type of. It's just that the prices being spoken about are not going to make him easy. But yeah, guys, I just think sometimes we get too focused too much on that area, that we forget that the team has to play. You know, the team has to move the ball. The team has to be able to control games. And I just hope that's something that United come to think of when they make that decision. But yeah, I'm obviously also gonna that thing is also gonna move into the segue of what I'm gonna talk about also soon. But guys, I just wanted to share my thoughts about that. Like, subscribe, guys, leave a comment, and guys, let's interact. My name is George Kochi. I'm blessed with you again, guys. Bye.